Hello everyone, and welcome to the Reddit Railway. My name is Victor, and I'll be your driver. Today's destination is r/entitled parents, so all aboard! I'm a 20-year-old male, and this happened when I was 14. I have a brother that's about 6 years younger than me. He was coddled by my parents for having been diagnosed with high-functioning autism when he was 4, but other than that, he seems very normal, just unbelievably spoiled. He used to get his way a lot, and by a lot, I mean nearly all the time. Anything I had, he also had to have, so that meant we had doubles of almost everything that wasn't shared items, and anything he had that I didn't, he'd rub in my face any way he could. When I was 11, I begged my parents for a 3DS for my 12th birthday. I got one, but then was told to lend it to my brother whenever he wanted it, or else I'd have it taken away, which it was a lot. On one of her visits, my aunt saw my parents forcibly take my 3DS out of my hands to give to my brother. When that happened, she called out such blatant favoritism. They returned my 3DS immediately, then blamed me for the situation after my aunt left, but they didn't make me give it to my brother again. Instead, my parents went out a few days later and bought another 3DS as a surprise gift for my brother. On several of mine and other people's birthdays, my brother made a huge fuss because the party wasn't all about him. They outright stated he was upset because he wasn't getting any gifts or getting to blow out the candles on the cake. My parents learned the hard way they couldn't enable my brother at those parties. They actually got kicked out of a few. Because of that, other kids at his school stopped inviting him to birthday parties altogether. For me, my birthdays were some of the only days I had that were about me. Otherwise, my parents forced my life to revolve around my little brother. On my 13th birthday, my parents paid more attention to him than to me. They even asked if I'd let my brother blow out my candles because he was upset and pouting. I refused because I wanted to blow out my own candles. They called me a spoiled brat at first, till my aunt intervened and chastised them on their favoritism yet again. She once again called out my parents by pointing out my brother gets nearly everything I do just because he's autistic. My parents got no support from anyone else other than my brother, who was still crying because he wasn't getting to blow out my candles, and because he didn't get his way, he tried to outright spit on my cake, but my awesome aunt thankfully blocked him before he got the chance. She then scolded him till he ran to my mum in tears. My parents took a lot of heat from the other adults there and then promised to never let my brother blow out my candles again, but they pretty much went through the motions for the rest of the party. My aunt pretty much took over coordinating everything from that point. The following year, a couple of weeks before my birthday, my parents sat me down and told me they were still going to get me some gifts and a small cake, but my birthday party was effectively cancelled to avoid my brother having another meltdown. I told them I couldn't believe they were doing this to me, and they just seemed to shrug it off without a care. So at school over the next week, I told my friends, my teachers, and even my school counselor. All of them were appalled by my parents' lack of consideration or empathy. The vice principal even found out and consoled me. All this got back to my parents through social media. My parents ended up grounding and gaslighting me for telling so many people, but that didn't stop me from telling everyone at school that I was grounded for being upset my birthday was cancelled for no good reason. I guess that made it a lot worse because several of my parents' own friends, along with parents of other kids at my school, called them up or sent Facebook messages basically saying, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And suddenly I was ungrounded. I didn't get an apology either. My dad just walked into my room with his arms crossed, told me my grounding was over early, and then walked out. That was it. I thought my party was still cancelled because nobody said anything about it. My brother thought it was hilarious and rubbed it in my face that I wasn't going to get to celebrate. But by the end of the 2 weeks, my parents held a surprise party for me at my favorite restaurant. They then started claiming this was their intent all along. I knew it wasn't. From what I'd seen, everyone was incredibly unhappy with them for what they did, and it showed with every interaction between my family members and parents. So they ended up doing this surprise party to try and save what little reputation they had, but I'm pretty sure they had to pay through the nose that day to accommodate me. I got dinner with all my friends at my favorite restaurant that had a small arcade. I even got the PS4 game system I'd been jonesing for at the time. I could tell it was all pretty much planned and bought last minute because my dad had a look on him that my aunt comically described as like a moth had flown out of his wallet. My brother of course made a huge fuss that I got this surprise party, but with so many of my friends and their parents there, my mum and dad finally put their foot down on my brother to stop his tantrum when he wanted to push my cake off the table. My brother ended up getting a timeout for the first time since he was a toddler. My mum had to stay with him to make sure he didn't do anything crazy, and he did try several times to run to the cake or stack of presents. Who knows what he would have done were it not for the fact at least one adult was always on guard. Even my dad stood guard to keep him away. My mum ended up having to remove my brother and herself from the party entirely. They went to a McDonald's nearby so he could have fun in their play area. I later heard she spent at least an hour trying to get him to come out of the play area's tube structure. structure. He only left because he had to use the bathroom, but did try to run back in afterwards. My parents never tried to cancel my birthday again when I still lived with them, though they never again tried as hard or spent as much. For the remaining 4 years I was under their roof, my birthday pies consisted of a local pizza parlor and a cake without my name written on it. I don't mean to sound spoiled, but I was a bit disappointed I never got a cake with my name on it again. My aunt called my parents out on that each year, and each year they claimed they forgot to get the cake decorated. I'm pretty sure the reason my name was never on another cake was because my brother always refused to eat pieces that had writing of someone else's name on it at any party, and they couldn't put his name on any of my cakes or it would have looked very bad for them. But the fact I still got a day all about me was still fantastic in my book, as most everything else revolved around my brother. During each of my remaining birthday parties while living at home, my brother made a fuss and my mum took him somewhere else to calm down. I was still required to share my PS4 with my brother, but it was still mine, and I took it with me when I moved out at 18. Little bro did not like that and had a huge fit till my parents went out and bought another PS4 for him. When I moved out, they finally had to deal with how they'd raised him, and since I wasn't there to help anymore, things got bad for them. On his recent 14th birthday, he went mental at our parents for not getting him a PS5. He is now currently grounded for I don't know how long after causing hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars in collateral damage during his rampage. He picked up a chair and started destroying anything that was in front of him. My parents just looked mentally checked out when I last saw them. My aunt also told me they confided in her that they wish they could send my brother to military or boarding school in the future because they can't handle the monster they create anymore, but there's no way they can afford that. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find it ironically funny. I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is why some people shouldn't have kids. It's absolutely disgusting when parents treat their children differently, and their terrible example has clearly created a monster. Now they get to reap what they sowed, which is very satisfying. At least you're not stuck in that awful situation anymore, OP. I'd sit back and enjoy the fireworks, and tell your aunt she's awesome for having your back like that. Anyway, we've come to the end of our journey. Thank you for traveling on the Reddit Railway, and we hope to see you again soon.